Guys, I hope you watched everything we just had lined up for you. I hope you catched what? I hope you caught the intro. I hope you caught the news highlights with Hilda Wadidi looking fierce as usual. And more importantly, what she said was important. Yes, yes, we got you. All right, guys, now we are... Oh, and we had an interview with at It's by Monevi's social media platform. And now, drum rolls, please. I have with me Dr. Lucy Muturi, a practicing pharmacist. And do you know what we're going to talk about today? I think since it's Queen's Wednesday, we're going to speak on things that queens do have, I don't want to say issue with, but it kind of hits close to home. I didn't tell you it's Queen's Wednesday, surprise. We celebrate queens on Wednesdays, and it just happens to be International Day of the Girl Child. Yes! All right. Welcome to studio, doctor.
Thank you very much.
Does it feel good being called a doctor? I imagine it does. Yeah, you put in a lot of effort. Yeah? Okay, I digress. Tell us, okay, before we get into the contraceptives are as a result of you know, something that we're trying to have that maybe is outside a marriage setting, but also within the marriage setting, yeah. So let's start from outside. So where do you think is kind of the bar? Where do you, first start having sex or start using contraceptives?
All right. Thank you for having me on the show, by the way. I think we can start with understanding the definition of contraceptives in themselves.
Okay.
The word contra is to go against. Septive actually just comes from the word conception. So the whole idea about contraceptives is the ability not to conceive,
okay,
or to prevent your ability to conceive. That's the whole picture around it. Yeah? So that it is happening outside a marriage setting or a family setting is simply because there's somebody who definitely will get involved in a sexual relation, but their biggest anxiety is that they do not want to conceive.
That's the only problem.
That is the bottom.
STDs, STIs,
absolutely,
just pregnancy.
absolutely. That's the bottom line. No matter how much we campaign about, you know, you will get infections, you can get STIs, you can get HIV. Half the time, the bigger problem is no. I don't have a problem getting pleasure, but I do not want the responsibility that comes with it.
I don't want baggage after.
Well, it's not baggage. You see, every choice you make has a consequence, and it needs to be a positive consequence in this context when you're talking about life, because that's what conceiving is all about. Yeah, the challenge comes when you want one thing but you do not want the outcome that it comes with. That's really where the challenge is, and that's how come then contraceptives have their place at this point in time. Okay,
so what's the age limit? I want to say, where's the bar? Where should we say, okay guys, maybe start thinking about using this here, not below, and maybe an example of why you would not agree, and then
Okay, I think by and large the first point when you should be having those thoughts or those conversations is when you're in a state of mind that can clearly define what it is that you want for your life and how you want your life to map out. Obviously, conceiving doesn't happen in the air. Somebody needs to be involved. At least two people in this case have to be involved. So the question then comes, at what point at what point do these two people then sit down to agree that we would like to make a relationship out of each other? And then if it turns physical, there's a probability that one of the things that comes out of our relationship is to conceive. Now, is that a conversation you can have when you're 12? Is that a conversation you can have when you're 16? Is that a conversation when you can have at 18? Legally speaking, 18 is the bar, right? And nothing stops you from then getting that consent, even within yourself, to say, I have no problem moving on with my life at 18. Earlier days, we could see that happening even younger years, but tradition has changed a lot, societal practices have changed a lot. So when we do find girls who find themselves in that situation before 18 years, then it's a concern. And it's a loud concern because then all this aspect of moral issues and how it is that they're practicing the choices that they're making then becomes the bigger problem to deal with, so to speak. So I would set the bar at 18, but I'd also set the bar at the point when you can make a conscious decision and you can have a consent to that decision. And there's a point in time where you and your partner or whoever the other party is are in a position to actually say, yes, this is something we're going to do, but we also have what it takes to deal with the consequence or the responsibility that it desires.
And this cuts across the board, whether you're having consensual sex or you're a sex worker. Now, I want to ask, we had a little talk about this, and we're just going to brush on it, but we must, because it's international. This name, it's International Day of a Girl Child. Yes, that's it. So we have, there was an article a couple of, I don't know if it was weeks or days ago, that was talking about how girls are selling sex to get pads. Yeah, so in that kind of situation, that kind of scenario, would we want to say, okay, fine, you found yourself here, maybe just be safe on the way? And what does it do to your young body? All this pumping of hormones, and they've barely developed, like you barely have breasts even, and we're now pumping in hormones. What do you maybe think? Yes.
Okay, all right. I think it is really sad that the cause of nature then has to be traded, so to speak. You have to sell your body to actually address a situation that you have. Because menses for girls will start as early as 9 and go on until as late as 45 for those who end up in early menopause, and can go on until 50. But to find a situation where girls then have to get involved in sex, that's not consent. That is not a situation where they woke up and went into it, but it's because it has something else attached to it. That in its own way is a moral issue. Yeah, that is a moral issue. We cannot allow that to be the reason then to say perhaps proceed and introduce contraceptives to them at this point. The bigger problem is that they have menses. Menses have to be addressed. We have a solution right now. That's what sanitary pads are supposed to be doing. The mode and form by which they acquire them is not morally right. And I think that's where the issue is. On the other aspect where you're asking at what point, what do they do, what the hormones are all about, contraceptives come in two forms. We either have them as, they're basically artificial in nature, either hormonal or nano-hormonal. What most of us are aware of are the hormonal ones. The pill is one of them, whether it's morning after pill or the pills that are taken for 21 days or for 28 days. Each of them contain either of two hormones. The female body actually has two hormones, the estrogen and the progesterone. So either you have a combination of the two or one or the other, depending on what it is that needs to be addressed. Yeah? Now, when these are taken primarily for purposes of contraceptive, then they achieve a totally different objective, right? They will actually enhance your body's ability not to conceive, but they do come with a variety of other things in terms of side effects. Because the way the body works, nature has a balance, and it says we have enough of something. So the minute you have more, then something has to give. And that's how come then the side effects come in. For some ladies, it will be weight gain. For others, it will be pooling of fluid in their feet. In some extreme cases, we've heard of... In their feet?
Like, you know, the way pregnant women get, like they
exactly
like that.
You get swollen feet.
Wow.
For others, it's we have a lot of acne and pigmentation issues. For those who are a bit more conscious about their beauty cares, but I don't know which woman isn't. Then there's also the other aspect of internally now. Yeah, we are seeing a lot of cases happening with what we call DVT, deep vein thrombosis. Basically, it's just little blood clots roaming around, because then when you're pulling at the veins, then a lot of that blood is not going back into the system, it's not circulating. Those are just some of the extremes that we can get. Yeah. Then when they're not hormonal, we then have them as either the condom, there is a female condom, is a diaphragm, it could be the coil. Some even spermicides are actually available, so that, you know, at the point where the sperm comes into contact with the vagina, they get to die. Those are just some of the examples that we can describe in totality as contraceptives.
That's a lot to take in, guys. It really is. But I want to know what you think. I told you not to video call me. I'll finish your bundles now. Meanwhile, 0700345457, that's our WhatsApp line. Slide in there. Most importantly, 22162, you start with YM254. That is our text line. Today we are talking about contraceptives on a Queen's Wednesday that happens to be International Day of a Girl Child. Whoever named that holiday, we need to talk. It's very long. But yes, catch us right here with Dr. Lucy Muturi. Give us your questions. What do you want to know? This is a very, 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 very touchy subject, you know, because I've been around campus girls, because I was on campus at one point in my life, yes. So, and there were all these conversations, and we didn't really know what was going on. we don't know, and we should not just be harmed by ignorance, you know? Yeah, so I want by the end of the session that we've helped a couple of girls out there, and as they start typing and typing and typing, maybe we continue a bit. What is that diaphragm? What is this coil things? What are those?
Okay. Now the diaphragm is it's actually a female condom, and the whole idea is that it's supposed to be inserted at the cervix. A woman's body has the first entry, which is what we know as the vaginal entry, but then further up, then where the uterus begins is the cervix. There's a cervical opening. So the diaphragm has actually been designed to be inserted at the cervix. Even with demonstrations, I'm not too sure the extent of good practice. Someone is
sounds painful.
Well, it has its way of being done, but it's something that it's an art. Let's put it that way. It's an art, right? And then for the coil, now that the diaphragm is something then a lady can do on her own. Well, that was the whole idea of it. It still hasn't gained a lot of popularity in the market. We still have them more as the condoms that men use. Then for the coil is something that it's like a T-shaped object. Very flexible in nature. It has a little wire on the inside, a copper wire, and it's designed to actually sit across the uterus. That only a gyna can insert. It is something that has to be inserted by a gynecologist.
The coil now.
The coil.
And I point here because the last time I was talking about the coil, someone was telling me they got it over here. Like, is there a particular position?
Now, the coil is specific to vaginal entry into the uterus, directly into the uterus. Yeah?
Then what's this stuff?
That is an O-plant. It's like a stick, and you have a surgical opening done. A little incision is done on the inner arm. It's usually done on the inner arm on this side. Just a little prick, and then it's inserted. Also, a gyna can do that, and then they close it up. But it's something that can last you as much as 5 years. The extent of time can be up to 5 years. And what it does is that it releases a little amount of hormone every day, for every month, for every week, for every year, for 5 years. That's what the no plant does. For the coil, it's not hormonal in nature. It just sits, and every time you actually do get to conceive, it makes sure that no implant actually happens at the uterus. Yes.
Okay. 0700345457, that's a WhatsApp line. Slide in there, tell us where you are watching from and who you are, or text us at 22162 and start with YM254 as we continue with the conversation. Is there like a recommended contraceptive? Ama, we're just recommending don't use them at all?
From the science of things?
Yeah.
I would say if you don't need to, don't. There are times when the actual same medication is used, but not as a contraceptive. It's not a family planning aid. It actually is used for taking care of women's reproductive health. So those two objectives are very different. But if you're looking at it from a family planning point of view, I would say think through what your value system are in context to what you want out of a family. And then make your choices. We already have enough. Google is your friend. Just one Google opportunity of what is a coil, what is a hormonal contraceptive, what does an implant do, will give you enough reason to just say, if this is what I have to experience, if only to say I don't want a child, then this is a bit too much. Yeah? There is other alternatives in terms of managing your family life using natural methods. And those natural methods are things that you can learn, because then previously before, prehistorically, there were no contraceptives. Contraceptives are something that came much later. But somehow, families were planned. So there is a way that nature provides. And that's using the female body to communicate at what point there's fertility and conception can be achieved, and at what point there's no fertility and conception cannot be achieved. Yes.
All right, so we just have a quick question. Morning Val, great topic today. What is the spermicide thing?
The spermicide is actually, it's like either in the form of a gel or in the form of a tablet or in the form of a liquid. Yes.
What?
It's a gel that can be applied on the vaginal area, or it can be a liquid that you actually inject in using a syringe, or it can be a tablet that you insert in the vagina. whose main business actually is to make sure that when ejaculation happens and the sperms are present on the vagina, it kills them.
Spermicide, like pesticide ya sperm.
Exactly.
Okay. Mbona mtu akitumia depo ananyesha sana? I'm thinking they're asking why when you use contraceptives, I think you have a heavy flow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, depo is the form of an injection.
Oh,
And it's the one that is given, and it's an injection that you get that lasts for 3 months. What I was talking about, depositing a hormone, a small amount of hormone into the system every so often. Now, depo is usually given either from the bum bum, for lack of a better option to call that, or from the thigh. It's an injection that's given. It must be given through that. So if it's given any other way, then that was the wrong method of injecting it. And one of the side effects is that then it increases, like I said, the body has a balance. You either have a high of something or a low of something. Menses come because then you have a low of estrogen and a high of progesterone. Now, if you communicate to the body differently, then it reorganizes itself. And it then starts creating times and zones for menses to show up that ideally were not what nature had designed for your body. So what she's referring to is a scenario whereby they get menses in a irregular manner. Either you have absolute absence of menses that can go on for a very long time, or you have menses that have no control. So a situation whereby a girl can be on her period for 10 days, then 2 days of dryness, and another 10 days. And that's simply because of the amount of hormone that happens to be in the body.
Okay, all right. Jackie from Kirinyaga, a good topic indeed. Does a coil have an effect on the uterus?
Yes, it does. The coil sits on the uterus, primarily just to make sure that at the point when conception happens, no implantation happens. Whereas the hormonal method prevents you from actually releasing an egg from the ovary, that is the whole idea. The coil, on the other hand, acts after fertilization has happened. So in not so many words, nice and plain and simple, it is a mode of intrauterine abortion because fertilization actually happens, but you prevent the egg from actually implanting itself on the uterus directly.
Such a heavy word.
Yes.
But it's a International Day of a Girl Child, and we're all about empowering the girls.
Absolutely.
That's not empowering, giving her the choice whether to use or not to use?
No. It doesn't offer you the choice. If you understand the real role of what the coil will do, remember the whole idea was it's contraceptive, which means I do not want to conceive. That's the whole idea. So if the choice is a coil, fertilization will have happened, mostly because of the position at which fertilization happens and where the coil is positioned. So you already have an egg making its way to the uterus. It finds an obstruction. That obstruction prevents it from planting onto the uterus, and hence there's damage to the egg, the fertilized egg, and hence implantation doesn't happen, so destruction happens that way.
I'm feeling like this is like a situation, a rock and a hard place. So you have one contraceptive that just stops everything,
exactly.
Spermicide. Then you have the coil that is now the evil, I don't know, the less of the two evil is the other one. Okay, you know what, let me just read another message. I think I'm enjoying this a bit too much. You see, I don't know anything about these things. What makes a lady have irregular periods, as in inakuja 1 week, alafu after another week inakuja tena? It's like mtu ako na periods all through the month.
Okay. What the question doesn't address, which maybe we can get an answer at a later stage, is are they on anything hormonal or not? Because then if they are, then the answer would be yes. It's very likely that whatever it is that they're using that is hormonal in nature is also interfering with the menses. If they're not on anything hormonal, then that actually is a medical concern, because then nature has a way that it has defined the body to actually take menses or get menses. And if it's irregular, there is already a remedy that's available. A visit to their gynecologist should be able to help them out with that.
This is, we're assuming that they have ready access to a gynecologist. We are.
I think it's still something. No, we still would like it to be done by a specialist, because a gynecologist is a specialist of reproductive health. Give and take efforts are being made to make sure there's a gyna in every public hospital accessible, or there's the reproductive health clinics that are also run by professionals who are qualified in the area, but they would need to seek medical help. That would be useful, because then if they're irregular for a reason, especially if they are not on anything that is hormonal.
Now this one, all right, I will try my best. Also, just leave your name and where you're watching from, but if you're feeling shy, it's okay, I'll forgive you. Highs, naeza do what ni conceive and no period for 3 years, so from Thika. And I don't use anything for those 3 years.
Okay. What, in a case like hers, what would need to be investigated is what her state of the ovaries are, because there's a very strong likelihood that she's probably not getting what we call fertile follicles, that are the ones that actually produce ovules, and those ovules are the ones that have the egg for the female body. Yeah,
it's a journey from follicles to egg.
Exactly. And if the issue is then not her, then it could be her husband in this case, may actually be the one who has defective sperm. So they are not able to actually make conception happen. She's not had her periods for those 3 years.
Yeah.
So her infertility is actually as a result of something that needs to be looked into as far as her ovaries is concerned. Yes. So for her, it is a medical, it's a medical inquest.
Oh, wow. Okay, this one is a bit powerful. I'm not too sure what it has to do about contraceptives, but I really think we should answer. What causes miscarriages and how can you prevent it? Because it has happened twice.
All right. A miscarriage is already a reality that you did have fertilization happen. There's a very strong chance that there was implantation that happened in the uterus. But the uterus is a bit challenged in being able to host the fertilized egg. Yeah? We have two situations in this case. Either it does it normally, and the body naturally doesn't want any interference. That's your natural state. So the egg usually comes, the fertilized egg usually comes designed in a manner to fight, to latch on to the uterus. That's nature. Now, if it loses the fight, then you get a miscarriage. If your uterus overpowers, in that case, then the uterus could be the one that has overpowered the fertilized egg, or it could be from the onset, the fertilized egg did not have, let me call them good qualities of being able to survive in the uterus. Okay. So a miscarriage could happen. And hopefully, no coil was present, there was no interference with the process of implantation. That could be one thing. The other thing that is a leading cause for most women right now is hormonal imbalance. The level of hormone is too low. So one of the interventions doctors are doing and need to do immediately, you notice that there's a chance you could be getting a miscarriage, is to actually put you on the hormone that prevents it from happening. And for most women, miscarriages are things that can be avoided because they start with, let me start by saying, the minute you're confirmed pregnant, there should be no discharge whatsoever from your uterus. You should not get any kind of vaginal discharge that is colored. Most women are not able to recognize that because then the color could be a small tint of brown, and that small tint of brown means your uterus is bleeding.
It's trouble.
And there's some trouble coming through. So by the time a woman is confirming a miscarriage, the way we know it, she probably started seeing a little spot 2 or 3 days before, and you know, life moves on. And
you see, because we don't know.
Exactly. And then if you happen to be in a matatu, if you happen to be in something that's bumpy, so you also increase the amount of activity that's going on with the uterus. So it actually then encourages mechanical exit, yeah, in that sense. But it is not supposed to happen. So if women are conscious and aware that you actually have any slight spot, the first immediate thing is to get professional help. Okay. That would be because there is help out there, and we shouldn't have as many miscarriages as we're seeing at the moment.
All right. I know the topic today is upbringing of a girl child, but just one last question. Now we're from the premarital relations. Now we're in an institution, we're in the marriage setting. So now you have a couple who's had children, and they're done with all that, and without having to tie tubes and all these things. Does a woman still have to now start again with contraceptives and all this? Okay.
Now, in a marriage setting, things are a bit different because it's about consent, it's about mutual understanding, and it's about understanding that the reality of a child is a gift, and there's a sense of responsibility. Women have a choice. They do not necessarily have to be on contraceptives simply because they're married and they do not want more children.
Vasectomy?
Vasectomy is not an option.
Why?
that is a permanent, actually it's a permanent, well, they're saying it's reversible.
Yes.
We've seen it reversible in the West. We're waiting for a few evidences here in Kenya. Maybe men have done it here in Kenya and they've not
But
come
in
forward.
Africa.
But yes. Yeah, so for vasectomy or tubal ligation, which is basically tying up the tubes of the lady, those are permanent things.
All right.
And they have a moral fabric attached to it. Yes.
All these things are very close to moral situation. I am sure they're going to keep the questions coming, although we have to finish up with the interview. So you will let me know where I can tell them to find you if they just want to get into contact. Yes.
Okay. Yes.
It's fine.
I will leave some directions behind here.
All right. So don't panic. Just because she's leaving the set right now doesn't mean you cannot speak to her. Okay. 0700345457. Our WhatsApp line 22162. Our text line start with YM254. We have been in studio with Dr. Lucy Muturi, exercising pharmacist. Practicing so close. Practicing pharmacist. Please don't go away. We have so much more on Why in the Morning. Exercising.